It's me, Susan Flory. A summer warm welcome to this edition of The Big Middle. Wish we indie potters had music rights, access to all the music sloshing around the world, because I would be firing up Sisters Are Doing It For Themselves, that Aretha Franklin and Annie Lennox feminist anthem from the 80s. I mean, it's really what came to mind when I was thinking, well, after I'd invited my guest onto the show, because people, more and more, especially in the last year and a half of the pandemic, are doing it for themselves. So I tweaked the lyrics a little bit. I've had that on a brain loop since I invited you, Sam Feltham, onto the podcast. How are you doing, Sam?
I'm good. Yeah, it's been a good day so far.
Good. And Sam is a health crusader of the first order. 6 years ago, he founded the UK's Public Health Collaboration, PHC UK for short. It's a grassroots education hub, a non-profit, and it is very much on the leading edge of that global wave of people rising up against the dietary orthodoxy that's making way too many of us sick. And I just have to reference, Sam, before we get going. I love that height chart. Did you measure your height before you came on?
Yeah, I measure my height every day just to see if I grow or shrink. But no, it's my my daughter's grow chart and soon to be son's grow chart as well.
Soon to be sons.
Yeah, my wife is 5 months pregnant with a boy. So yeah.
Fantastic.
Very excited.
I love this setting. It adds a lot of texture. So how was your morning? You said it was good. Did you have a workout and get everything done that you wanted to?
Well, I do my usual thing, which is work through the morning. Well, I usually drop my daughter off at nursery. She goes to school in September. But yeah, work through morning, come 12 o'clock. I go outside for a workout. Today's workout was running a mile as quickly as I can, followed by 3 sets of 10 press-ups, 10 jumping squats, 5 chin-ups, and then 10 leg raises, and do that 3 times over. It takes no more than 20 minutes. So, yeah, it's solid.
Well, I will ask you maybe as we get going a little bit, maybe for some of the ways that you're thinking around training and what's best, what's not, as we get along. Now, it was 6 years ago you set up the Public Health Collaboration UK, and it is going gangbusters, and it is bottom up people power, part of that global movement of real change. Now, you are going to be telling us how you do what you do and how it all came to be as we go. But give us the nutshell version I've got a 45% American audience and lots of people in Australia, New Zealand, and Singapore. So for people who haven't heard of you, what do you do? What's the blurb that's on your website?
Well, in a nutshell, I was in the health and fitness industry since I was a teenager, and learned many things along the way. But when it came to about 2015, I felt as though we were always going to be battling uphill. And so I put together a team and a scientific advisory board made up of GPs, dietitian, endocrinologist, and pitched them the idea of setting up this charity in the UK called Public Health Collaboration. And then in February 2016, we did an online crowdfunding campaign for that, doubled our target within the month, and then we've been going from strength to strength ever since.
So what would the tagline be, though? Is it, spreading the news about living healthier longer via cha-cha-cha?
We like to inform healthy decisions for better public health.
And you've got the evidence and the scientific advisors that are putting all of their knowledge and their clinical experience and their research into an evidence pot, which we can see there's a tab on the website there, and it's chock-a with all kinds of fascinating reading.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what we're trying to do, inform healthier decisions for better public health through evidence and real world projects as well, which we'll get into perhaps later. Our ambassadors program, where we've got 250 volunteers across the country doing amazing things. So
people power. It's amazing what you're doing. And again, I keep saying it, but when I think of what you do, when I dig into it, it is people power bottom up. It's not top down. It's not waiting waiting for that lumbering ship of government to start making policy changes. So let's trace your path. Let's get some more detail on your path to doing what you did now in the fitness industry. You went from teaching snowboarding, it was a 4-year effort that, teaching snowboarding to around the world. Then you went off to university to get a degree in a techie field in web design. And then you took a master personal training, a few months doing that in Spain at the European Fitness Institute. And then you set up something that was hugely successful, fitness franchise. I love the name, Smash the Fat. These were sort of fitness boot camps, and you did YouTube shows, and you had a blog, and you did more podcasts than I've done, and you did them very, very well. So why did that stop being enough for you?
Yeah, it was really, really rewarding and fulfilling, helping hundreds, if not thousands, of people every month through the actual organisation. We ended up with 10 locations across the UK, but I always felt as though we're going to be constantly battling uphill, and I kept on envisaging the future that we would be continually battling. And so I thought, we've got to get to the root cause of this and sort it out, hopefully at a policy level one day. But the least that we can do is get to the primary care workers, the GPs, the practice nurses, and help them make the changes that they need to make in order to bring about the change that we want to see. So I just felt like I was in this philosophical quandary, and I took action.
Yeah, you really did. I mean, it's not often that you hear of someone chucking a thriving, growing business like that. And you were doing great things and making an impact, but you saw a bigger impact to make over there.
Yeah, exactly. I just felt like there was a bigger calling for it, and thankfully I helped transition any of the franchises into making their own brand, so that they weren't left in the lurch, so to speak. But just felt I heard the call, and I headed straight for it.
And were you finding when you were trying to convince some of your contemporaries in the fitness industry, because we know that thrives on, and we'll dig into this more as we go, but the calories in, calories out model, and layering guilt on people for being non-compliant. You must have had the whole bag of Doritos. You must have never moved off your sofa. That's why we're in the fix we're in, because, we all have bruised psyches. We are compliant. We're doing our best, but the model doesn't work.
Yeah, this is it. And we've been trying to do that basically since the 80s, that same model, and it clearly hasn't worked. So we need to have a fresh look at it, a bit of blue sky thinking, and I think that's what we're attempting to do with the PHC. So I continually have those conversations with people in the fitness industry, and all you can do is do what you think is right, and that's what we're doing.
So you present the information, direct them to your website and all the evidence therein, and hope that they have that little light bulb moment. Now is the time, I think, to introduce the calories in, calories out experiment that you did, the biohacking experiment that brought to mind, I'm probably twice your age, and it brought to mind Morgan Spurlock, the American guy,
Yep.
Supersize Me, and he, subsisted for a month on McDonald's offerings. So tell us what you did, which is fascinating.
Yes. So this was really in the middle of when I was running Smash the Fat. It was about 2013. And I was trying to think of a way that I could present how flawed the calorie in, calorie out model was. And of course, being a naturally lean, athletic guy, it was going to be really difficult to lose weight basically on it. So I had to do the opposite, which is to gain weight. And so I decided that the way that I was going to do this is by eating twice as much as I usually do, but do it on 3 different diets for 3 weeks each time, and with a 3-month break in between each one in order to biochemically reset. And the 3 diets, so the first one was a low carb real food diet. The second one was a low fat fake food diet. And then the last one was a very low fat vegan diet. And I tried to match the calories as much as possible. And I very much did that with the low carb real food and the low fat fake food experiments. And I'll get into why the calories are a little bit lower on the very low fat vegan diet.
And for the first one, was the low carb high fat the first one that you did, where it was just shy of 6,000 unbelievable calories a day?
Exactly. So I was always eating just under 6,000 calories each day on all three of the experiments. And this first one was that low carb real food diet, where it's basically scrambled eggs and salmon for breakfast, snacks of nuts in between. When I say a snack, it's 1,000 calories of nuts.
I know. Do you know what? I looked at your site because Smash the Fat, is it smashthefat.com? It's still online. And I looked at your spreadsheets and I went, wow, he's really loving those green beans every meal.
Yes.
And then the nuts, I went, how many nuts is 1,000 calories? And you would say 150 grams. And I think, what is that? That's more than a cup, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, probably just over a cup's worth.
It's what loads of people could wolf down easily if they're watching TV and sticking their hand in a bag.
Oh yeah, definitely. You can do that fairly easily. I mean, it gets a lot more difficult once you've reached 4,000 calories for the day. I was very, very satiated. I wasn't hungry at all during that first experiment.
But how did you feel like the Michelin Man? You just kept having to pound the food in? Because I think that would have been massively challenging to eat when you're not hungry. It's not easy.
No, not at all. Particularly on such a diet like low carb real food, where it's protein and fat heavy. So I was really having to force it down. So in the evening, at about something like 8 o'clock, I'd be eating 1,000 calories worth of steak and green beans, right? And then 2 hours later, to finish the day off, I'd have to eat 1,000 calories worth of pecan nuts, for instance.
Your sleep must have been massively disrupted.
Yeah, well, what's interesting is that my sleep wasn't too bad on the low carb one. I slept pretty well, but there was one night where I woke up in a massive sweat. It was like on day 16 of 21. So I don't know what happened there. Like my metabolism just reached a point where it was like, right, let's kick the thermogenesis into
freak out moment. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
So then carry on, because you had a washout period and then you did the next lot, similar calorie ingestion, but different macros, different foods, same sort of overfeeding cycle. So I'll be quiet and let you rattle through the rest of the experiment.
On that low carb experiment, over the 21 days, I ended up in a net calorie surplus of 47,000 calories. So the calorie formula would predict that I would have gained 6 kilograms on that experiment, but I only ended up putting on just over 1 kilogram, and I actually lost 3 centimeters, or just over an inch, on my waist. So it kind of defied the calorie formula just on the face of it.
And that was the 3,500 calories.
For every 3,500 calories worth that you eat over your calorie maintenance level, you'd be gaining a pound of fat, is the theory, basically.
And and we know from all of the Prof. Tim Noakes and Ben Bickman that I've had on the show that this is a value that's founded on nothing. Thermodynamics doesn't even support this. That's massive. So you didn't gain 10 pounds or 7 kilos or whatever.
No, I didn't gain 6 kilos. I, in fact, only gained just over 1 kilogram, and I actually lost 3 centimeters from my waist. So, it's quite counter to the calorie in, calorie out formula. And then to follow it up 3 months later, I did this low fat fake food diet where I was eating sugary cereal with skim milk for breakfast, and then skinless chicken breast sandwiches for lunch with 0% fat yogurt, and then evening would be like a low fat lasagna with a low fat garlic bread, followed by some low fat chocolate.
And did you make the lasagna, or was that out of what the UK does, out of a packet that they bought at the supermarket?
100%, yeah. It was all out of a packet, pretty much everything. So, that was quite horrendous, really. It was fun for the first couple of days, I have to say, just because it's completely different to my usual diet. But after that, I felt a real shift in terms of so I had asthma when I was younger, and it cleared up from having gone on to a low carb real food diet. But my asthmatic symptoms came back. I was getting out of breath just, cycling to work, which is just a leisurely cycle.
The onset of this decline in your physical health happened pretty quickly.
Just within a few days, it completely came back, and I was like, oh, this is terrible. But over those 21 days, I managed to work it out to basically be the same as the low carb diet. So my net calorie surplus was 47,000 calories again. So just over a 6 kilogram weight gain that I should have had. But in actual fact, over those 21 days, I actually gained just over 7 kilograms.
Holy doodle.
So yeah, I actually went over the calorie formula with this one.
Gosh, it must have been hard. And you're married. Were you married then? Must have been hard.
I was with my now wife. Yeah.
Right. I imagine that was very hard for her to handle, to just see you,
see me balloon
down all this food and change, visibly before her eyes. Mind you, though, I've seen the photos. You're a lean guy. Spot the difference. I think you've got the skinny gene in your microbiome. I'm thinking about Prof. Tim Spector's microbiome work and his twin studies, precision nutrition, all of that. But the fact that you put on that much weight so quickly, when really you seem like you had a very balanced body. You had flexibility built within your metabolism probably before you started this extreme experiment.
Oh yeah, very much so. I was really surprised at how much I actually gained over those 21 days. And in actual fact, I put on 9.25 centimeters on my waist, or just over 3 inches, which is rather incredible, really, because my waist hadn't shifted ever. Essentially.
In 21 days. But that's double, triple the caloric guidelines. If you want it, people will be saying, yeah, but come on, he supersized me. He did the Morgan Spurlock routine. So, of course, he's going to gain weight. But if he'd stuck to the dietary guidelines, what is it for men? 2,000 for women, which is a heck of a lot, I think, for most women. Most women of my age, postmenopausal women, it's too much. Yeah. But 2,500 is the normal recommended caloric intake, isn't it?
Yeah,
so
that's
you went
right.
Double that, if not more.
Oh yeah, over. People would think that of course you're going to gain weight, but as I showed with the previous experiment, that was the same net calorie surplus. So the point is that you're comparing like for like in terms of the calories, but what you're not comparing like for like is the actual food quality. On that first one, it was low carb real food. On this one, it was low fat fake food. So those are the two different variables that have created the two different outcomes.
And
basically.
Even though on the low carb high fat, you were stuffed to the gills and you rolled yourself into bed, did you still get some sleep? Or when was your sleep most disrupted on which of the first two?
So as I mentioned, on the low carb one, it was only really on day 16 when I woke up in a big sweat that I actually had any problems. But on the low fat fake food, I started to snore a lot, and it was really disruptive. I'd wake up just randomly, which wasn't like me at all, which is really frustrating. But it clearly demonstrates how powerful diet can be with all of this. And then, as I say, asthmatic symptoms came back as well. So I was very out of breath very easily. And it was incredible to see that comparison of even though they're the same amount of calories, you have a very different outcome depending on the type of food.
I imagine you looked at the fridge and it became the monster in the room. You were determined to go forward with this, but oh man, I have to keep eating. What? Yeah.
What was interesting on the low fat fake food one is that I was hating the food by the end. But obviously I kept on going, but I could have kept on eating at the end of the day on the low fat fake food one. On the low carb real food, I got to lunchtime and I could have fasted for 5 days, to be honest.
Which is what we all find on low carb high fat, isn't it? The satiety. Totally. Food loses its control over you because, I've been keto for 5 years and I haven't had the weight thing. I've got a thyroid issue, so apparently it blocks ketosis even with all the fasting I do. So I'm on it. I'm trying to figure everything out forever, it seems. But it's amazing how you don't think of food. You power on, you can work out in a fasted state. And I haven't had the fat whoosh that Dr. Jason Fung and Megan Ramos, who I've had on the podcast, talk about. But, you know, I've got some special situations happening, so digging around to find the answers. But for you then, you moved on after your washout period to the very final one. How hard was that for you, the vegan route?
Yes. So this third one, it was really tough because I'd never done vegetarianism or veganism or anything like that before. And so taking out any animal products out my diet for 21 days seemed quite daunting for me. And on this one, I managed to work it out to be the same gross calorie surplus. But in actual fact, the net calorie surplus was 7,000 calories less than the other two. So it was at 40,000 calories I ended up in over those 21 days. And that's because of the amount of fiber that I was eating, basically.
Yeah, you must have been fun to be around.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a lot of beans, probably a lot of rice and more beans and more lentils and more beans.
Exactly, all of that. As you say, my wife, who was then my girlfriend, did not like me. I was. Yeah, you didn't want to be around me.
Between the snoring and the rest of it, did that make you snore as well, or was that just?
Yes, my asthmatic symptoms came back, not as bad as the low-fat fake food one, but they certainly came back, and I could feel that during exercise and even my cycle commute as well. Although I didn't really have disruptive sleep so much, which was interesting. So however, I did feel a somewhat cognitive decline. I don't know if that's to do with the fact that because my usual diet is fairly prominent in animal foods, and so my brain is used to that.
So you're used to switching. Do you do any long fasts and things? So maybe you're switching. You've got the flexibility to switch from sugar burner to fat.
Oh, I absolutely can. Yeah, I absolutely can metabolically shift like that. I only eat, what's called, between 12 and 8 usually. And in actual fact, at the time, I was ensuring that I was doing a 24-hour fast once a week as well. Before the experiments, I was on a 2 meal a day regime where once a week I would make sure that I'd have a 24-hour fast in there as well. So I'd be having 16-hour fasts in there at least. Right. But then there'd be also a 24 within the week as well.
So your resetting went to the obvious lengths. You made sure that everything was reset, and you even did the fasting, which put you on a better plane. So, legitimate results. So this caught the attention of, I imagine, the fitness community, the medical community. How did you spread the word about this biohacking experiment? Was it through Smash the Fat and all of the contacts? Because you met some great people, all the interviews you did. You were well plugged in with campaigners for better, healthy living.
Yeah, it was just through the blog, the Smash the Fat blog, and the YouTube channel. And people were just really interested by it because I was doing daily video updates. And, this is 2013. So coming up in 2 years' time, it'll be 10 years, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah, you were leading the wave. You did jump cut, jump cut, jump cut for 31 days. And I just went, 21 days. And I just went, wow, that's a lot of work. I mean, for anyone who knows how much work goes into making video and cutting it and doing all that, it's a lot of work. So, I mean, kudos for 100%. You for that big effort. And you were ahead of the technology. Now the technology makes it so much easier. You don't need avid film technology from Hollywood to be making little videos. So amazing. So I want to also, because this is the only time I'm going to be able to mention this. This is years after, when you did the biohacking, is it years after you also caught the attention of a wider community than the Smash the Fat following? Because you had a cover feature in Men's Health magazine when you were, what were you,
almost
12 pack or what?
Yeah, 12 pack. Yeah, I wish. I entered the Men's Health cover competition. I got a little bit down the road, but unfortunately not on the cover. But I got in incredible shape for that. I was like 5% body fat.
Wow.
And
I don't think I've ever been 5% body fat. I think at birth she had 7%. I mean, who knows? But isn't that funny? Because I did listen to one podcast in my research. I try not to listen too widely to other audio interviews because, it ends up getting in the way. But I looked at a lot of your output on Smash the Fat and, of course, went through the PHC UK website, top to tail. And I listened to an excellent podcast you did with Ivor Cummins, the Fat Emperor. And I think you referenced the Men's Health cover there. So I wasn't clear on whether you actually made it cover, but good effort. Yeah. I mean, to be able to, pitch your hat in to get on that. So were you a runner-up?
In a way. I wouldn't say an official runner-up or anything, because there's like a short list that they do, like of like 10 or 12 guys, and then the public choose. I mean, it's a great focus. So anything like that helps you focus on getting in the best shape of your life is welcome. And I couldn't imagine doing it now with a young family. Yeah. It's a completely different kettle of fish. And even with the videos and things like that, I mean, obviously I had all the time in the world in a way when you don't have young children to look after.
Well, amazing effort. And now you're a dad of one and one more to come. So you're busy. And without getting into the admin side of PHC UK, you pretty much do it all on your own, don't you?
Yeah. So I do. I certainly basically set it up a lot on my own with the help of the Scientific Advisory Board.
I just mean the day-to-day running of the site and
yeah, exactly. So the day-to-day running is basically me. There are some notable mentions. Our trustees. So we've got the Scientific Advisory Board, but 3 of those board members are also trustees. Dr. Joanne McCormick, Dr. Ian Lake, and Dr. Trudy Deacon. They help me out staying on the straight and narrow in terms of that. We're in quite constant communication. Then there is Jackie Wood, who fulfills all of the members packs. So when somebody signs up as a member, they get a T-shirt and some booklets and things like that. And I basically send her a spreadsheet once a week with all of the new members, and she packs it all up and takes it to the post office. So I wouldn't be able to keep my sanity without Jackie.
That's fantastic. I was worried for you because I know just from running a podcast and doing my comms consulting work, some days my head's spinning around and I can't catch up, and I'm constantly apologizing. I'm really sorry I didn't get back to you 7 days ago when you emailed me. It's very difficult. And as you well know, when you put out any sort of a product, your inbox is heaving with people who want to come on and and say nice things and all the rest. Now, before we get into how everything was launched, I do want to take you back to your 13-year-old self. You went through a really tough experience at puberty. Your mother had to push to get the tests that led to a cancer diagnosis. Do you think that is the basis of your skepticism now of mainstream medicine?
Yeah, potentially, because just to put that in perspective, basically, when I was 13, my lymph node glands, one of my lymph node glands in my neck, ballooned to about the size of an egg, small egg. And obviously that's quite worrying to have something bulging out of the side of your neck. And it's whoa, that's kind of crazy. So off to the doctor, we went off to the GP, and the GP basically said that, that just happens during puberty for a lot of boys, so it's nothing really to worry about. And a month later, my mum basically went back and brought in the heavy artillery and said, "You're going to do a biopsy." End of discussion, basically.
Wow,
very much so. Very strong woman. And I had the biopsy. The diagnosis came back that it was Hodgkin's lymphoma, but thankfully, because we caught it early, all we have to do is 4.5 months of chemo and then you should be clear. And thankfully I did 4.5 months of chemo, 8 courses in total over those 4.5 months, and then I was clear after that. I had monthly checkups for the first year, and then kind of every 6 months after that, and then every year after that. But
no sign of any recurrence. Everything's just fine.
No, all good. But obviously, that experience of having seen my mum be very determined to push back against a GP of all people that most people wouldn't necessarily push back on. definitely set the scene for what was to come with the PhD.
And that was early on. I mean, now we're used to patient power, people power, advocating for our own health, but that's only since the advent of the internet and the democratization of information accessibility. Well done, Mom, because that was a wonderful role model for you, because you're very much cut from that cloth now, action man, and you move toward the goal and don't give up, because that brings me to when you set up PHC UK. I always have to think, am I going to scramble the acronym phcuk.org, your charity. You pitched and got some heavyweight support from, really high-profile doctors in the UK right off the hop. And so was it your overfeeding experiment and your smash the fat work and your blog and your interviews and all of that? How did you frame the pitch? And did you have the full vision about how you wanted to move the needle on public health messaging?
Yeah, I kind of had this big grand vision that I pitched, which was to move away from smash the fats and then basically close it down. So I was kind of saying that up front, that though I'm obviously running this fitness bootcamp business right now, but what I'd really like to do is, close that down and then move on to running this charity idea. And the way that we do that is that we'd have this scientific advisory board that would advise and write reports in order to then present that to the NHS and the government in order to try and help them see a better way forward. And thankfully, because of my position in the community at the time, I managed to pitch all of these people, and they said, "Yeah, this sounds like a great idea. Let's do it."
And you got the Unwins on, David Unwin, the GP from Southport, and his wife Jen, clinical psychologist who's just put out an amazing book that I'm reading, A Fork in the Road. I'm going to have them on the show as a duo. I'm not sure when, because as you know, the show is kind of a magazine style, so I don't focus exclusively on this, but really excited to have them on. And who else did you have? Dr. Asim Malhotra, who's such an energetic campaigner.
Very much so. Asim is fantastic, and we've got some things in the works that will hopefully create a few more fireworks later this year. So look out for that.
Fireworks, ooh.
Yeah. Well, maybe not fireworks. Maybe you could call it a ballet. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see.
Good. I like that. I like the artistic approach. Yeah, and I'm not going to ask you, because you'll tell me if you want to, so I won't push. When the moment comes, we'll know all about what you're doing. But what are your ambitions? Are you going to have some sort of an umbrella tie-up with, the Prof. Tim Noakes Nutrition Network, which is giving certification and training to medical doctors and healthcare practitioners who say, hang on a minute, I got 2 lectures on nutrition. I really want to know all about this stuff, and I do want some sort of a qualification. I mean, they're doing that work. They've had something like 6,000 people go through their system.
Incredible.
Now.
So good.
And what you're doing with your ambassadors program, tell us about that rather than me summing up everything, because you're also spreading the message. But I'm just wondering if you're going to have an overarching body, some sort of a global organizational collection of you, because we've also got Nina Teicholz, her Nutrition Coalition out of Washington.
As well, yeah, exactly. And just straight off the bat, I don't necessarily think that we need an overarching global organisation there. What all we need is open communication and collaboration between all of these organisations that are doing incredible things, both in their own country and globally as well. So, for instance, as you mentioned there, for us, the PHC, we're very much focused on the UK. And one of the ways that we're trying to bring about change is through our ambassadors program. Now, this is a volunteer-led program where the volunteers are basically liaisons with local healthcare professionals in the area, mostly GP practices, and represent the PHC and inform those GP practices what the PHC does, why we're doing what we're doing, and how we can help them as well. And the main way that we're trying to help them is by setting up free lifestyle support groups for their patients to attend that would be facilitated by one of our ambassadors and with their support as NHS healthcare professionals. And that's very, because we do have the NHS in the UK, that's kind of, it's a really UK centric approach that you need to do that. I think you could do it in other
GPs
countries.
Or is it all by reference? You know, one GP recommends to another and
Both.
opens the door to you, or?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, in an ideal world, you get a recommendation, so you can get a foot in the door, but sometimes it has to be cold calling. And the way that we do that is that you, as the ambassador, if you're just coming at it as a person with no medical or nutritional qualifications, you might have your own personal story and journey that you've been on. But what we recommend that you do is that you join the patient participation group at your registered practice. And so in England and Wales, it's not the case in Scotland, but in England and Wales, every GP practice has to have a patient participation group. And those groups are there in order to give the practice staff direct feedback on how they're doing and what they should be doing, to better relations with the patients and, you know, for everybody's better health. And so what we recommend is that the ambassadors join those groups and kind of, you know, attend the first meeting, get a lay of the land, see what personalities there are and what their priorities are. And then at the end of that first meeting, you'd mention that you're a PHC ambassador and that it'd be great to put the PHC on the agenda for the next meeting. And then at this next meeting, you then present this standardized 50-minute presentation that we've got that takes them through everything and has this call to action at the end of trying to set up free lifestyle support groups. We've got a system there that kind of funnels through the formal channels that are already laid down for us. If you're coming at it from an angle where you don't have any contacts within the NHS. However, you know, half of the ambassadors are GPs, nurses, dietitians, nutritional therapists, health coaches, people of that ilk, so they have connections already, so they can kind of, you know, leapfrog some of the steps. But we've got, and
they feed back
a strategy
the
for
anecdotes. And do they feed data to you, or I suppose you're just not there yet where you have a team where you can crunch all of the data that they
we can't quite crunch the data how, you know, it'd be great to. However, what we do have is our case study book, our ambassador's case study book, and we've got, I think, up to 16 case studies in that now, where it shows what that ambassador has been doing in collaboration with the local healthcare professionals. And there's usually a quote in there from, you know, the GP or the nurse, saying how wonderful it's been to see the patients interact, engage with it, and what improvements there have been as well. Right. We're building it up in terms of case studies. There's no like standardized format to do it. That'd be a lot of work, and also it prevents a lot of things happening once you have to like standardize things like that. But
and you have to go through legal hoops and loops, and you need a team. You know, you need a research team, you know, devoted to data analytics and all the rest. Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, I've done several episodes here on the Big Middle, health-related episodes on the immune system and the microbiome with one of your ambassadors, Graham Phillips, the pharmacist who gave up drugs. I tend to call him a precision health practitioner now. And he runs, as you know, a company called Pro Longevity, health coaching and lifestyle monitoring. And he's having great success, same messaging as you. And I'm also going to have Iranda, I wrote his name on my screen so I don't muck it up too bad, Iranda Wickramasinghe. Sorry, Iranda. I'm going to have him and a couple of the people from his groups, because he told me he's now running 3 of these groups. You know, amazing effort and really having great success with people recovering their health or finding themselves feeling better than they've ever felt by following his advice.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I just hope that in the future, the Ambassadors Programme goes from strength to strength. And what I'm working on with Aranda and a few other ambassadors is this new service that we're now going to be providing to the NHS called the Lifestyle Club.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so we're starting off by running type 2 diabetes courses and pre-diabetes courses to help people reduce their medication or come off of it entirely. We're in the pilot stage at the moment, and come September, that pilot will come to an end. We'll get the results, and then we'll start presenting it as an offering to the NHS, trying to get commissioned so that we can. My ultimate aim would be to take all of this stuff off of the NHS's plate, because I don't necessarily think that it's their place to be doing that. They can be part of the machine that sorts that out, of course, but the NHS is incredibly good at acute care. It's really good at acute care, and that's what it should be mainly focusing on. I don't think it should have a focus of preventative care.
Well, that is in the works, though, because I was head of communications for the APPG for longevity, and that's very much their thrust, in keeping with the government's aim of adding 5 extra years of healthy life expectancy. And they're on it, but as we know, policy, government, there's a 15-year lag. You can have an idea, and it's not like you're more nimble, you're more agile. And you've got David Unwin, the low-carb GP, Asim Malhotra, some of the other luminaries of this space that are on your scientific advisory board. So there's lots to do, but there's already lots happening out there. So the awareness level is immense.
It is, and I'd probably like to clarify what I meant there as well. That I'd love the NHS to strive to do it, but it's such a large ship that it's really, as you say, it's really difficult to turn, and the bureaucracy that has to be involved is incredibly difficult. So. And particularly when we're up against it in terms of the current government guidelines when it comes to healthy eating, and even its approach to the National Diabetes Prevention Programme, which they've spent 100 million quid on, and it's not having a very good effect. So, I mean, let's say the corporate capture,
the corporate capture, by big food, we've seen it, we know it, the vested interests, it's impossible. I mean, even I shared with you before we opened the mics a little story about Mexico. I mean, the whole major food law came crashing down on Mexico in February when the Senate said, we're not just like here in the UK moving to ban advertising, we're going to ban the sale of junk food. And of course, all the major government of the developed so-called world, they piled in, and the food lobbies, just no, wait. The manufacturers, the big food manufacturers that are hawking ultra-processed food and adding to the problem, they're having a really tough time now. So anyway, I mean, it's all tough. So it's great that, again, as I say, it's people power, it's grassroots. What else in your future is your strategy to more directly engage with the masses? Because you've had this amazing conference where you had a who's who, a gallery of stars of the living healthy for longer and the new scientific thinking. You just had another of your conferences in, what was it, May?
That was a virtual one. Yeah.
I mean,
that was really good.
That was fantastic. I'm still going through the output because, there's only 24 hours in the day, and if you could just fix yourself, tie yourself to a chair and consume all of this amazing stuff. So that was amazing. But will you have maybe sidebar events as you grow? It would be great to target fitness industry people, have small conferences where say, look, you were taught this, and of course your brain has been washed. So now have a look at this and see if I can convince you that there are some other ways.
Yeah, I think so. And as we grow and hopefully gain more resources, then we'll be able to do, as you say, these sidebar projects where we can do more of an outreach to the fitness community. What I'm always wary of are people that are completely adverse to this. So if you're unable to even be open to the idea, then I find it difficult why we should. And this sounds terrible, waste the time, essentially. I'm not going to waste my energy trying to convince you. I'm going to get on and do it. And that's why we have the Ambassadors Program, because they're getting out there, they're setting up these groups, and they're proving that it's improving people's health, it's reducing their medication and saving the NHS money. And that's essentially, the more that we do that, the more that it proves the point. And it becomes less and less of an issue of convincing people that this is a sound approach. It becomes more of an issue of how do we actually implement this? And when that time comes, they will come to us and say, how do we implement this? Because you guys have got a good approach. So
absolutely. Well, that's the power of it. And I really get you on the why waste your energy, because there are so many, you see it on Twitter all the time, the fixed mindsets. And, you know, some people, I mean, there's so many, the way the medical system is structured, I've said it many times in the podcast, it's such a mess because doctors are run ragged, getting their expertise, getting their knowledge, doing the 80-hour weeks, the double, triple shifts. I mean, and then they have, you know, maybe like you, one kid at home, another on the way. They want life balance. We want work-life balance. And we hobble them. And we give them 8-minute appointments and one ailment only. And they learn all about dispensing the pills. And I can just imagine for a lot of people, there's so much GP burnout. And health practitioners in general want more time to have this holistic approach. But you can't change fixed mindsets. I mean, some practitioners, they graduate from medical school and that's it. The blinders are on.
Yeah. What I was taught, that's it. It's never going to change. And I hope as we move forward that's changing. But you know, there's always going to be that element there. And you know, that's another reason that I think that the likes of the PHC and others should take more of a role in the preventative aspect of the NHS, because the healthcare professionals out there are completely burnt out. And, you know, at the moment, at least, it's another thing that they'd have to learn in order to bring about the change that we want to see. But if they can outsource that for the time being, when it becomes more manageable, where they wouldn't have backlog of appointments, and, you know, this last year certainly didn't help in terms of all of that, then I think we'd be in a better position for everybody to have a better work-life balance as well. Yeah,
I mean, with impressive reach and energy, you're building the foundations of all of that. So it's just going to take a little bit of time. But you've already had you have 250 ambassadors. You've got amazing heavyweight scientific advisors, and you're spreading the word. What sort of traffic have you had through the groups? How many people?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. It's in the thousands. It's in the thousands. Maybe not the tens of thousands yet, but
that's one mind being changed, one mind at a time. That's fantastic. Now, how can we get behind you? You know, as I said, 45% of the big middle audience is in the States and the rest around the world. But I know everyone will be wanting to support your work because, you know, we're one planet and everything, you know, there are no borders anymore with this health stuff, with the democratization of information. So how can we get behind you and your work?
Yeah, so you can go to our website, phcuk.org. Have a look around. If you find the information particularly useful, feel free to share it with your friends. And if you'd like to support our work, then of course there's a donate button on there, and you can become an international member if you wanted. And that would be a really good way to support us. But another way that you could support us that perhaps isn't as expensive as it is becoming an international member, that would be just to go to our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/phcuk.org. Go there. Feel free to watch all of our conference videos from our 5 previous conferences, the last 2 of which have been virtual. So we've had the likes of Gary Torbs on, Tim Noakes actually came in person back in 2018. 2019 was Professor Robert Lustig, and 2020 was virtual, but we had Dr. Sarah Hallberg present for us there as well. So we've had people from all over. And if you enjoy those videos, feel free to give us a £2 donation. And that'd be greatly appreciated, because we don't do any adverts on the YouTube channel. So we don't earn any money from people viewing it at all. So if you enjoyed it, feel free to give us what we call a couple of quid or £2.
Right. People power again. So you're not asking for corporate donations. You don't have to worry about conflicts of interest behind the scenes. It's really just people empowering other people, backed by the latest science that we've got. The science that we had a century ago, but we ignored it. And Ansel Keys cherry picking the 7 countries. And there's all of that as well on your site. I mean, this is all fascinating, the way the world has moved on. So, you know, I also want, before I go, I'd be remiss if I didn't say, I still hear from loads of people, because everybody thinks I'm a bit of a kook because I've been doing the 5 years keto and the fasting. And I say, well, if you've got a thyroid issue and all these things going on, and you've got a curious mind, you dig around. You try to find answers and root causes and holistic approaches. But lots of people say, oh, I just eat in moderation. I said, yeah, you're 35. And you haven't blown out your knees like I did doing high impact aerobics. You are still really flexible with your nutrition, but wait until you're in your 60s and in your 50s, and when your hormones kidnap you, for lack of a better word.
100%.
And I just think, but every woman's magazine and lots of the online output, it's everything in moderation, a little bit of half a tub of, ice cream won't hurt you. And the biochemical
we do that on a daily basis.
And the thing is, we do. I mean, I even know during lockdown, I've had this issue with not being able to. I had some surgery and I was told, 6 weeks, don't move. And I went, what? Insulin resistance after 5 days. So, I'll get back into it. I had my first, I kind of ignored the final week of all that. And I had my first go nuts in the pool at my aqua aerobics classes with heavy weights for an hour. And I just was reborn yesterday. And I just need a pool in my backyard and I'll be happy, as well as a kettlebell and all the rest. But it's going to take time to get my fitness level back to where it was pre-lockdown even. So sorry to be talking about me, but I want to get some takeaways. What is your view when you started out with Smash the Fat, and even before when you were working, as a party coordinator cum gym instructor at one of the gym chains? What's changed about your understanding of what works when it comes to exercise? And then I'll ask you about food afterward.
Yeah. So, in my younger years, of course, I was on the same train as everybody else, everything in moderation and all that jazz. But my thinking certainly changed when I started working with people, and understanding that they absolutely were following my initial advice. And then thankfully Gary Taubes published his slightly less long book, Why We Get Fat and What to Do About It. His Cliff Note version of Good Calories, Bad Calories. And once I read that, there was no going back. I felt like I had a pretty good understanding of what was happening. And from that point on, I started to present the information in a different way, and also give people carbohydrate awareness. And then they started to lose weight so much easier, basically. And for those that are talking about everything in moderation, I mean, just how moderate should I take heroin, for instance? It's, you can't just say everything in moderation, because 60% of the foods that are on kids' plates these days are foods that we didn't have 150 years ago. So you just can't say everything in moderation, because we've created these foods in the past 150 years. So, I mean, what was the rule back then? The rule was, if you wanted to lose weight, get rid of the potatoes and bread and stop drinking the beer.
Yes.
QED. We're still in that position because essentially our biology hasn't changed in 150 years. Or, it's certainly our gut microbiomes have changed, I think, and that obviously has a massive impact in terms of gene expression and things like that. But
yeah, you're lucky you got the skinny one on the microbiome. Yeah. You've got the skinny bacteria. I don't think I have even a smidge of that, but that's okay. I'm only interested in being healthy, but I wouldn't mind if my clothes still fit, the really good stuff that I've had in the closet hanging. Nice. I look at it and that would be really good. But what about exercise? I mean, your view on that. Are you in the camp now where it's energy snacks, short, digestible, effort? Because I know you talked about your regime this morning, what you did. But for the average person who's in a bit of a lockdown malaise and feeling like, what would you suggest? The getting up every 25 minutes and swinging a kettlebell around, or?
Yeah, I mean, that's one way to do it. And again, it's really down to whatever works for you. And I always say, there are as many low carb diets as there are people. And even with that, I mean, I'd say, there are as many real food diets as there are people, really. You need to do what works for you. For somebody that's perhaps not been as active as they have been, do take it slow. It doesn't necessarily need to involve any equipment whatsoever. What it could entail is a walk around your local area, just even like a half a mile walk around, and then before you sit down to watch TV, and then during TV. And it's a little bit more difficult these days because most of us don't watch things on streaming services.
Exactly.
But if you are watching TV that has adverts in it, during the adverts, do some squats or some press ups or something like that. So, as you say, like little exercise snacks is a good idea in that respect. And even, through your working day. And it can just be walking in place, with high knees and things like that. Or
and
alternatively,
using your body for resistance. And, instead of going to the gym and feeling, I've got to do my hour and a half long HIIT class. Well, they're not usually that long, 45 minutes. But, or, I need to hit the treadmill for 1 hour. The sports science is moving away from all of that now, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, definitely. The only form of long exercise that I do are long walks in nature, that's the only time that I don't ever do any sort of endurance. Everything else is short blast stuff where, as I said this morning, I did a 1 mile run followed by 3 sets of some body weight strength training. And then my other forms, I'm an avid martial artist.
Are you?
So I've got a punch bag at home. I don't attend any classes anymore, but I take it all out on the punch bag, basically.
So do you have really
both hanging
strong
up and on the
feet?
floor.
Could you break a brick with your foot?
Potentially. Yeah, I haven't tried in a long time. But
so is it Cobra Kai, which has been popularized by that Netflix show? Or what type of martial arts, or is it a mix?
It's a real mix. I started out studying Western kickboxing and jiu-jitsu. I've done Jeet Kune Do, Muay Thai, kickboxing, and Krav Maga as well.
Krav Maga as well. I like just saying that. It sounds so cool.
It is, yeah. It's a lot of fun. All bits and bobs of martial arts, and martial arts is just again, it's whatever works really. Well,
I liked how you were. I think it was in the Ivor Cummins one, or maybe it was in one of your interviews that I listened to. Was it with Mark? You've got so many great interviews that still live online. I'll put a link in the show notes to where people can watch your YouTube output and the Smash the Fat site. But you were saying something about, I've done so many extreme sports, and I thought, okay, well, snowboarding, that can be really extreme. And then you did I am in love with rollerblading. Love it. Right. Because I'm Canadian, we used to skate. And I really miss inline skating. And I thought, wow, you put that in the extreme sports category. And I went, wow, that's the only extreme sport I've ever done.
Nice.
Ever. And then snakeboarding, which is South African roots. So you are used to using that body of yours to do some fancy maneuvers.
Yeah. No, I've had a very varied sports life, done everything under the sun pretty much. The only sport that I don't particularly get on with is golf. I've tried it. It's just not my cup of tea.
Is it too slow? Is it just?
Probably. I tell you what, though, I did foot golf the other day, so it's a mixture of football and golf, where obviously you just kick a football towards the hole, and the hole is like a massive bucket in the ground. That was a lot of fun.
Is that a big field, like a soccer pitch? What?
Yeah, it's literally like a golf course. So like a nine hole pitch and putt course, where they've converted it into a foot golf course, and it's really busy. It's becoming one of the most popular sports in the country, foot golf, because you just get to walk around a grassy field and kick the ball. You don't have to run about, you just walk.
Okay, Google is happening when we hang up on this call, because I've got to see this. Foot golf, fantastic, really good. Sam Feltham, founder, director, action man of the Public Health Collaboration UK, a charity doing no end of good to help us all live healthier longer. I will put links to everything that you do in the show notes. Foot golf, if I find a good foot golf video, I will include that, I promise. Thank you so much, Sam. I could speak to you for another hour at least.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Susan. It's been a real pleasure.
And thank you, dear listener, for your donations, your reviews, your kind emails of appreciation. I know a lot of you have been getting in touch when I do pick up the healthy living threads and you say how much you appreciate these things. I try to be active on Twitter at The Big Middle Pod, but increasingly, I'm finding I'm just backing away a little bit because I've got so many books to read and so many people to reach out to, and the emails. Thank you so much for all of your emails asking to be on the show. I do appreciate those. I might actually try to put up a form so you can tell me what you're all about, and I can be a little bit quicker at getting back to you with your pitches to me. So thanks for all of that. Ciao for now. That's our show. Bye-bye.